Ladies and gentlemen, I call this meeting of the Millersville Borough Council to order as of 6:03 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed. I ask that you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Please be seated. All right, we're going to start this meeting off looking for a motion to approve the June 25th, 2024 council meeting minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Linda. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Very good. Motion passes. We will now move on to our citizens' requests and concerns. We will have a second one of these after the committees have had a chance to meet and our presenters have had a chance to go. So at this time, council will hear any comments, requests, or concerns from members of the public related to the agenda or other matters. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. We do ask that you either come to the microphone to speak up here or ask that the microphone be brought to you. We do also ask that you give your name and a general address for the record. Oh, sir, please, if you would, come up to the mic.
Hello, my name is Kenneth Weaver. I live at 13 Blue Rock Road in Millersville, across from the Conrads. Actually, a concern of mine, it's been for years, since I've been here since '78. Down 999, when people round the corner coming from the city, going toward Washington Borough, that becomes a racetrack. And it's like they'll hit, I'll bet you, 40, 50 miles an hour sometimes in front of our house, and we're just right around the corner. And I know our neighbor at 7 Blue Rock Road is concerned about the entrance to the parkway when people come in from Washington Borough toward Millersville to cut into the park, to cut through. They cut around all kind of traffic, and he's concerned there's going to be a flat one head-on traffic problem. And nothing ever seems to be done about the speed limit there. It's 25, but there's no way people go 25. And we've offered the borough that they could use our driveway to use radar. And at the time, radar wasn't legal, but I know it is now. Why don't somebody do something about it or try before somebody gets hurt? There's been some minor accidents coming out of the Minute Market there when cars hit side to side, but it's a problem, and it's not going to get any better. That's it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Other citizens' citizens' questions or requests? In that case, we will move on. Let's see here. Do we have anybody here from Civil Service, the next item on the agenda? If you would, please, to the mic. This concerns approval of a resolution to amend rules and regulations.
Yeah. There's recent case law passed, and we have to change our rules a little bit. On page 13, section 4.2D, the polygraph shall be given to the applicant prior to extending a conditional offer. As of now, they get it before, and we need to change that due to new case law. Look for the borough's approval on that.
Very well. Are there other items that have been I don't have a red line version here, so I just want to confirm there's no other changes.
Nope, it's just that.
Very well. Concerns from council? Very well. Seeing none, I am looking for a motion to approve the resolution to amend the rules and regulations for civil service. Moved by Darlene.
Second.
And seconded by Phyllis. Very well. All those in favor of approving the resolution to amend the rules and regulations for civil service, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Very well, motion carries.
Thank you. One other quick thing while everybody's here. August 6th is National Night Out. I wanted to bring that up. We're doing that right out here. It's from 6 to 8. We want to show support to the police department. There'll be local businesses and different groups there. There'll also be hot dogs provided. So if anybody wants to come out, that'd be a great night to come out. Thank you.
Very good. We'll now move on to our committee meetings. We will be getting finance out of the way first. Roll call for our finance committee. Do you do that? Me?
Just say who's here.
Very well. From the finance committee, who do we have in attendance other than myself?
Me.
Phyllis Skyverson and Marianne Gerber. Very good. First item on the agenda is a review and approval of the June financial record. Having reviewed this, I see nothing jumping out at me as objectionable or questionable. Are there any questions or concerns about the record? Very well. Seeing none, I will look for a motion to approve the June financial report.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded. Very well. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And abstentions. Very good. Motion carries. And now we have a point to discuss documentation of concerns regarding the auditing firm, of which we have some, but I understand that you have an update for us, Rebecca.
Sure, absolutely. So over the past week, we've made some progress in terms of the completion of the 2022 financial audit and work on the 2023 financial audit. I've had a few phone calls with our auditing firm over the last couple of days. So far, we've got our DCED, the Department of Community Development, we've got that report submitted. That was provided in your backup. So that's submitted to the DCED, and it has actually already been approved. So that's been submitted for 2022. And then we had to deal with a couple of last items on 2022 that were missing from the record. We got those fixed. So printed copies are being made. They're mailed to us. As soon as I get the printed copies, I will have them in your hand. And then 2 weeks from now, they'll be coming back to help us close out the 2023 audit. So that's where we're at right now. Based on their presentation that SEK gave back in January, no changes were made between then and now.
Excellent.
So the discussion of the documentation regarding concerns is something that, if council wants to put that forward, we want to do that between now and next year, because when the contract is up and we would go out to bid for a new auditing firm, we would need that documentation if they were to bid on the audit project. So that's where it stands now. So that's something for council to consider for now or the future.
Very good. Any questions for our borough manager on the subject?
One,
Yes.
I guess we'll now get I know we had the presentation with highlights and that sort of thing, items of concern, but will we now get all the figures?
Yes. She reviewed them with me over the phone, and then in the document itself we'll have the figures. The DCED report that was in the backup does have most of the high-level numbers in there.
Great.
But then
Did they give you any reason for the delay?
we were at the bottom of the pile. I did speak to leadership at SEK in order to get this to happen, and that is how it was described, that we're just in a list of other boroughs and townships that just happen to be on the bottom of the pile.
I would think if we're going to document any concern, it would be that we do have a concern regarding getting our audit, our complete audit, in a reasonable amount of time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely agree, and I think we've highlighted that a number of times, and we'll see if we can't put some language in the next contract to help speed things along a little bit.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. That's an option too.
All right, further questions about these, about any concerns regarding the auditing firm? Very well. Then I will close out the Finance Advisory Committee meeting. I spoke with Darlene ahead of time. We're going to...
Let's just go through with it. While they're here, they might want to hear that portion about the crossing guards as well. So
Very well.
we'll see it in 2 seconds.
if you would please begin with a roll call.
Okay, everybody from personnel here. Okay, there's 3 of us. There's another gentleman that's not here today. So there's 2 items on personnel's, and the first is to have a discussion about crossing guard vacancies. I'm going to pass it over to Chief to give you a little bit more of what's going on, but I figured with everybody here, it would be a good thing to talk about, so it's everybody kind of knows what's happening.
Okay, well, I appreciate it, and basically, most people are aware of just overall in general the crisis with trying to hire and get employees. Well, we're getting hit twofold with this problem, not only with crossing guards, but also with police officers. And that has a double impact, because if we don't have a crossing guard available to cover a post, which is very important for the safety of these children, a police officer has to try to cover the post. And that's where the 2-pronged problem is gotten to a breaking point, basically. And we've been fighting this battle for about the last 4 or 5 years. And now, out of the 4 crossing guards that we have, 2 are not coming back. There are a whole host of other issues along with it. The gentleman referenced driving and speeding. The people being verbally abusive to these crossing guards, not listening to them, nearly hitting them with their vehicles. This has been definitely the top year for both directions. Complaints by people calling in, just challenging everything the crossing guards do, and most of it I've found has not been on the fault of a crossing guard not doing something properly. They just don't seem to want to listen to these crossing guards anymore, and it's gotten that bad that, along with the just in general problem of trying to hire people, we've been struggling for the last 4 or 5 years. And at the same time, not having the police officers to cover it, it's not something we can fool around with. We're talking about the safety of children. And if there's not some adult there, you cannot risk something like that with the risk of a child getting struck by a vehicle. So I've had to have a meeting with the school superintendent to discuss this. And we've been looking at different options over the past couple years, and as we've struggled, we also had a report come back from the insurance carrier for the borough, who is recommending that we get out of the business of the crossing guards because of high liability claims and workman's compensation claims. It's only a recommendation at this time, but they're starting to lean towards recommendations that, who knows, could become high premiums or could become requirements at some point for the borough's insurance. So that's also fallen into play during this. And basically that caused, the insurance company proposed contracting out these services and not having the police department or the borough be responsible for crossing guards. So that I thought might be good and might be a saving grace to research. I was not aware of companies that do that. They provide the name of a company that Lancaster Township uses. I sent them very detailed information. It's a big company that's been doing this for many years, and we got a extremely outrageous quote compared to what it costs us now. And I gave that to the superintendent, and he immediately looked at me and said, they don't know our budget or yours, and it's 5 times what it costs us right now. We spend a little less than $50,000 now. This quote's for over $200,000 for a company to take over a crossing guard setup. So basically I had to have a meeting with the superintendent to discuss options, and the safest option, which is probably the most cost-effective option, even though it will probably provide some emotional response, will be to add some additional bus stops to pick the kids up and have them safely transported to the school on a bus, since there's not somebody there to make sure they're safe crossing the street. And that's my concern with the whole thing. Like I said, we've struggled with this, and I enjoy every day at the end of the day hearing my crossing guards. They know these kids by first name, and I watch the kids come through our parking lot to go to the homes over here. And I like that. I hate to see it come to this, but it's a different time. That's all I can say. That's not of my control. A lot of this stuff isn't of my control, whether you can get employees or not for this, but it's a very stark reality that if the kids' safety is at stake, has to be taken very seriously, and that's why I had that meeting with the superintendent, and he's gonna have to look at what is that cost compared to these other companies contracting out, and I can't imagine that cost could be anywhere near to add a few. There are already buses coming to the outskirts of the borough already, and he's going to get with the school board and the transportation people to work out numbers and see where we are with these different options. But people just need to be made aware that that's very possible what may happen. And it has to. We cannot risk. I do not want to look at somebody in the face and have to answer why there was nobody at a crossing post and a kid gets hurt, struck by a car. So that's going to be ongoing, and I'm waiting for some more feedback from the superintendent to see where we end up before this next school year starts.
Okay, we're not gonna make any decisions or any votes on it or anything like that. I just wanted him to make everybody aware of the issues that are coming up regarding that. There is another discussion for an applicant for Parks Commission vacancy. David Sykes has applied. Is there anybody here from Parks?
Yes.
It happens to be.
I'm not calling you out or anything.
Okay.
Just making sure, just seeing if there was anybody here from Parks. I don't see any problems with David Sykes coming on board, and I just wanted to make a motion for David Sykes to be part of the Parks Commission.
I'll second that.
Everybody in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? All good. All right.
Just one point of clarification for the crossing guard vacancies. Would you want this to continue on the personnel agenda to next meeting?
Yeah, you might as well put it on next meeting, and then if anything changes, we'll let you know. And that's everything for personnel. Congratulations, David.
We'll be moving on from personnel to our Public Welfare and Public Works Advisory Committee meeting, chaired by Councilmember Guyverson.
Good evening. I think I know why we have such a packed house this evening. And I think it's this item on the agenda. And I want to thank you for coming. I will do that. Our committee is Darlene Egger, Linda Belil, myself, and Mike Caulfold, who is not here because he is on vacation. Before I invite Garmin up to go over their proposal, I would like to just go over a few things. First of all, the Public Works Committee will be the only ones addressing Garmin during this time of the meeting. Council and everyone else will be able then to hear the questions that we have and Garmin's response. You might want to make note of anything that you wish to comment on during the second citizens' requests or concerns. Garmin has agreed to remain at the meeting to hear any public requests or concerns, so they're going to stay through that part of the meeting. We are aware that a project of this magnitude will greatly impact the citizens of the borough. Making changes to or writing new ordinances may seem okay on face value, but we will need to determine if these are changes we can live with. Any changes will affect any TND, that's traditional neighborhood development, in the future, and it will also affect the quality of life in Millersville. I also want to note that there will be no decisions on anything they are presenting tonight. This will be done at another time. So at this point, I would like to ask Garmin to come up and give us your presentation.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Williams with Garmin Builders. I'm the Director of Land Development. Jason Garmin's also here. The two of us probably will be the speakers for the initial presentation of the development. We have other team members here that will make introductions if necessary if speaking. We're in front of the committee and the council, and we've been in front of the council with this plan and also in front of the Planning Commission a couple times with this plan. The concept that we're presenting tonight hasn't changed. We did update this for a color rendering. This is the first time that the council is also seeing some building footprints on the plan, as well as some concept parking designs for the commercial and apartment uses that we're proposing. We continue to fine-tune this concept. Once we have some general consensus from not only the council but also the Planning Commission on the permitted density and the residential uses, we'll work the final apartment and commercial design particularly may see some changes as we determine some of the users, proceed through market studies, traffic studies, also utility connections, things like that. The Public Works Committee has expressed in the past that some study of the sewer would have to be done for a development. And as part of the conditional use process, the requirements for that would be to demonstrate to the council that water and sewer can be adequately provided to this development. This current plan shows a total of 376 units. The apartment uses that we're proposing are in the blue colored buildings on the plan. Those buildings remain adjacent to existing multifamily uses to the south of this development. The yellow shaded buildings on the plan are single family homes. We have coordinated the layout of those types of dwellings to be adjacent to the existing residential uses to the east and west, also north and south of the development. Part of the current ordinance requires that the only use adjacent to a single or existing single family home be another single family home. So those uses would comply with the ordinance. The townhome uses are in red and orange shading building on the interior part of the development. And then the red colored buildings parallel to Route 741 are commercial uses. Right now we are proposing approximately 40,000 square feet. Again, that may shift up or down as we work through the final planning process.
Right. If you could speak up just a little bit for our folks in the back.
Through the review process with this plan, the Planning Commission recommended that we proceed with the text amendment as presented to the council tonight. With the apartment uses that we are proposing, the recommendation from the Planning Commission was that no more than 30% of the dwelling units in the development be permitted to be apartment units. We have adjusted that count down from 120 to 112 units to comply with that recommendation from the Planning Commission. The zoning ordinance amendment that we presented proposes an increase in the density from 6 dwelling units to 7 dwelling units per acre. The TND ordinance permits 7 dwelling units per acre on other properties in the TND, so this is to try to make that compatible with what's already permitted on other properties, but also an acknowledgement of the improvements to the property. This development would become more viable if we can increase some of the density of the residential uses that we propose. Total of 20 acres of open space is proposed by this plan. It'll include some central park and common areas, particularly to the west of the commercial, west and north of the commercial buildings. 11 acres of the existing tree stand and the stream that bisects this property will also be preserved, as shown on this plan. 2 connection points are proposed along Route 741. The first is labeled as Street A. We're still not sure of what intersection improvements will be required because we're just not at that point. We have to consider PennDOT comments and also Borough Council comments. Ultimately, what would be required at that intersection. Street A going into the development would be the main access and provide some street frontage to the commercial uses and then back into the main part of the development. The second access on 741 would be through private parking compound. That would provide more likely a right in, right out access, again, dependent upon PennDOT comments, but secondary access on 741 would be provided. The third access, the borough ordinance requires that we consider stub streets from existing developments. So we would propose a connection to Locust Point Lane. This would provide access for this development eastbound 999 into Lancaster City. Feasibly, this would also provide access to the residents to 741, potentially minimizing the left-hand turns that would have to be done to the existing intersection at 999 and 741. Again, we're seeking 7 dwelling units an acre. To achieve this density, we are proposing to meet design incentives. Those incentives include controlling the architectural styles and the development or the aesthetic appearance and material selections on all the buildings in the development, including the commercial and apartment buildings. The second incentive is providing substantial recreation amenities. To gain an additional dwelling unit an acre, we would have to spend, I forget the exact amount in the ordinance, but for the number of dwelling units that you're proposing beyond the or allowed without the incentive, you have to spend a certain number of dollars on recreation improvements. Those recreation improvements will be realized through providing outdoor picnic areas, walking trails throughout the community, other amenities that would be realized through the design process and in consultation with the council. And then the third incentive we're proposing to add through this text amendment, we would be proposing to provide alley access and other parking alternatives which are addressed in the ordinance. In this case, the parking alternative for the single-family homes, there will be some alley load single-family homes, but then where alley load's not feasible, for example, in the periphery of the development, the garages would be recessed behind the main living area so that the focal point is the living area of the home and not the garage. That's a requirement of the ordinance. We were proposed to provide either the alternative or the rear load access to at least 60% of the dwellings in the development. Other additional changes are outlined. Most of them are just clarification. For example, some of the minimum requirements for the townhomes. The minimum width for a townhome, for example, is 20 feet. If we're providing rear access, we have the ability to provide the garage space separate from the living areas, which allows us to consider a reduced width of the building. Therefore, we're asking a reduction from 20 feet to 16 feet. And then the ordinance requires or allows 3-story buildings, but then requires pitched roof. So we're just asking for a little additional leadway there with 3-story buildings from 40-foot maximum height that's allowed to 45 feet. When considering this plan to some of the prior proposals that have been submitted to the borough for consideration, we feel that we've significantly reduced the overall density that's proposed by this development. We have seen plans that have gone through the process with as much as 580 dwelling units. I think that we're proposing something much more reasonable. We've considered the scale and floor plan or footprints of adjoining uses. By separating the apartment uses out from the commercial, we're able to keep the scale of the buildings similar to those buildings that already exist to the south part of the development. Through smaller scale buildings, there's less parking fields. We're able to provide a substantial higher amount of open space in this development. The minimum requirements are 25% of the development tract. We're coming in closer to 32%, which equates to about 4 to, I think just under 5 acres of additional open space and amenity opportunity for the development. Just for the sake of time, I know that there's probably a lot of questions here, so I don't want to touch point by point on the amendment. If there's any specific questions on requests that were being made, certainly we can go on with the presentation and point anything out. The major parts remain that the apartments are the standalone uses versus only being permitted when above commercial uses, and then the increase from 6 dwelling units to 7 dwelling units an acre. But aside from that, any additional questions, we're happy with the feedback.
I believe there will be a number of additional questions at this point. Darlene, would you like to begin?
I do have a question, like with the apartments. So the comprehensive plan clearly states that we spent a lot of time on the comprehensive plan, spent a lot of money to put it together. States no apartments, so no apartment buildings. So the only place that we're supposed to have apartment at this scale would be on top of the commercial. So I will tell you that's a huge thing for me, to have all those apartment buildings, 3 stories high, 5 apartment buildings in that area. So
I think what we might want to have you consider at this point is changing that apartment area. I mean, it's entirely possible that that could be eliminated and that we could have more townhouses or single-family homes because it is a fairly large area. And I can, Darlene referenced the comprehensive plan, and I was on that committee. And I had somebody tell me one time, oh, the comprehensive plan doesn't mean anything. That's just shelf plans. Nobody pays any attention to that. And then I had somebody else say to me, oh no, we follow the comprehensive plan. And we do what the comprehensive plan suggests because this is to be the guide for the development and the future of our borough. And in the comprehensive plan, page 12, for anyone who's interested, the intent is to allow a mix of single-family detached houses, side-by-side twin houses, and townhouses, but not apartment buildings. So I know that that is one of the first things you want us to change in our ordinances in order to allow this. I think if you want apartments, a limited number of apartments should be allowed above commercial uses. And that's exactly what our comprehensive plan allows. So I think you're going to find that this is not a popular item.
And we can explore all options. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So real quick, I think what I like about this plan
Just real quick, sir, your name for the record.
Oh, Jason Garman, Garman Builders. All right. What I get excited about this plan is commercial underneath apartments is not desirable either for the apartment renter, in my opinion, or the tenant that's going to occupy the commercial space. So what we're asking is that shift where we're able to have commercial still on the property and then separate the apartments. Otherwise, what we end up doing is we just elevate the apartments, we put commercial underneath it, and you get less desirable maybe space that they rent, and then it meets the ordinance. So we're trying to figure out how to work that together and end up with maybe more desirable commercial space, easier to park, easier to get into. You can attract a better commercial tenant. So your tenants that are gonna come into that commercial space, they don't have to worry about venting. So if you end up with like a brew pub or a coffee shop, it's a lot more friendly to have a standalone business where they can come in and out. A doctor's office, they want to be able to access and maybe go out the back. And apartments, it's just not as friendly for them to be underneath. So we're trying to figure out like how we do that well, because we can just literally, I think by the ordinance, raise these apartments, like get rid of the first floor, make that commercial space, rent that out, and it's less desirable, and may cause, I don't like to look as much, that's personal to me. I can see this vision, I get excited about it. I can take you to areas where I can show you commercial underneath apartments. Maybe that would excite you, maybe you'd love that. My experience hasn't been, it's just been, you get a lot of turnover, you get a lot of vacancies, and then you don't get, I guess, as high quality use for the apartment. So that's why this proposal is packaged that way. I would still love to even, like as we work through this plan, can we do maybe a hybrid of both? Is there a little bit of space that you can put underneath these underneath the apartments that complement the use of an apartment complex, and then also try to have a separate entrance in, entrance out for the commercial space, parking. You don't have to worry about, you know, when you leave your home, your apartment, walking out and then somebody coming into the commercial site, right? Everyone who lives in there, in the apartments lives in there, and they probably drive differently. You know, people drive differently in your own neighborhood than versus like in a commercial dwelling. So that's why we're excited about this plan. That's why we're pushing for it, or that's why we're asking for it. Otherwise, we go back, we can still get the apartment count up. We can still put, I think, put commercial space underneath, which just is a little less desirable. And
to do that, the buildings do get substantially larger than what they are now, which would require more parking, and, you know, impervious cover will definitely eat.
And I can certainly understand that, and I think, you know, I'm not saying that we want apartments above commercial. I'm just saying that that happens to be in the comprehensive plan as a way to have some apartments. But the comprehensive plan is very specific that we will not have standalone apartment buildings. And I am going to venture a guess that there are a lot of people in the borough who are not happy with the whole idea of have any apartments over there, especially when it could be filled with townhouses or duplexes or anything but apartments. And I think that is just something, you know, worth telling you this evening, because this is the first council has had an opportunity to speak with you about these plans. And I think it's important that you know that this is going to be a sticking point.
Yeah, and the zoning ordinance does permit apartments above commercial uses without limitation to number.
Right.
So, you know, to achieve the density or even a density that's close to what we have with standalone uses, that's what I'm saying, that the buildings will get larger, more parking, more impervious cover. If that's what the council wants, then that's something that we can certainly
the quality of apartment goes down. The quality of apartment might go down. The person that wants to rent above that commercial space might not be the same person that wants to rent your high-end apartment, standalone, independent, because again, it's different. You got an elevation, and you're above commercial, which is, my opinion, my experience, less desirable.
So are you suggesting that the standalone apartment buildings that you want are going to be high-end apartments?
That's what we're building in here would be a high-end, what we'd call a high-end garden-style apartment. So.
Then let me ask you another question in relation to this. Once this is built, everything else here will be sold as single dwellings or whatever. Who's going to monitor these apartments?
Well, typically it's such a large investment, right? So when we're building apartments today, you're realizing that you're competing against every other existing apartment, and you actually want to capture the rent market, and you want to be higher end on the rent market. And what I think is beautiful about this community is it allows somebody to move into an apartment at a really nice 2-bedroom apartment. What I'm saying is upscale, and then you can graduate into a townhome, you can graduate into a single family home, and you're still within the same community. It's almost like,
that may be true, but that doesn't answer my question.
What was your question again?
My question was, who is going to be monitoring and responsible for these apartments?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Should there be any?
Yeah, so the owners, I mean, obviously, like, I say obviously, this would be owned by, if Garmin's can keep it, Garmin's would keep it. Us to hold the project. But typically this might be owned by 3 people, 1 person, and they protect their investment because again, to buy something that's gonna cost them this amount of money, you wanna protect your investment, you wanna make sure that it stays nice for the next tenants moving in.
So then can I assume that after a certain period of time, say 5 years, you'll sell it off to somebody else?
In 5 years, it could be sold before we even start.
So there would be a management company also that would manage these maintenance
And they would not be on site, is that correct?
well, it would be like a Wolf and Klein who would manage the rental properties here in, Millersville Borough or anywhere in this location.
Typically, to get someone on site, you gotta go over 160 units. You get 200, you get 240 units. That's when they start getting on-site managers. We do have a 100-unit one now, so I mean, I think if you're getting that, like, how many calls do you get? How many interruptions you get? I drive through it. It's beautiful. I mean, it's not. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to figure out like what people are picturing when they go through one. We have one. We built one in Leola over behind Duncan. We're modeling this after the same plan. It's a great place to either start out or lay up or whatever you need to do.
Can you explain to me what the difference in the quality would be on those apartments versus the ones above the commercial?
We would try to hit the same quality, but I'm just worried about the tenant. Are you going to get the same? Does the same tenant going to accept living above that commercial? Therefore, am I going to have to ask a little bit more in your rent, right? So would it be a rent? Which you got to be careful, right? Because the less rent you get, the more affordable it is.
But this is done everywhere, where you put in new building and they're putting them in a higher density area. You have your shops and stuff underneath, and then you have 2 or 3 levels of apartments. It's done everywhere. So
we could do it here, and we're not going to argue against doing that if that's our option. It's not going to be that big of a beating to us to change to that if that's what it's going to take. But I'm just saying it's less desirable. Standalone apartment complex, and I say I want to live there, or if I go to one that has commercial underneath it and people are coming and going and I don't know who they are and my kid's going out of the car, that's completely different to me if I want to live there versus commercial underneath it because people just come and go.
I have a basic question before we even get to there though. On our comprehensive plan, in the traditional neighborhood, it's 4 people per acre, or 4 homes per acre. Now, you stated that we're looking at around 7. Is that correct? And you're saying that's up a little bit from 6, I think. Or you're saying that 6, somewhere another 6 came in.
Right, so.
In the comprehensive plan, yeah.
It says 4 that were traditional.
With the use of design incentives that are allowed in the TND ordinance, you're allowed to go up to 6.
The comprehensive plan says specifically the current maximum TND density is 4 homes per acre. And for anyone who's interested, an acre is approximately the size of a football field, give or take a little, with a density of 6 homes per acre being possible through bonus provisions.
But not 7.
But not 7.
You're allowed 7 on the.
On what?
On the south side of Cottage Avenue.
Cottage Avenue, south side of Cottage Avenue?
Where is that?
Where's
Yeah.
Anything from
From the zoning ordinance? No, it's the existing zoning ordinance right now for the borough. And I might be directionally wrong, but there's property-specific requirements. This property is allowed 6. The other property that's on Cottage Avenue adjacent to the university is allowed 7.
So a lot of that then would also have me like question like, okay, what's the concern, right? Because we can either get the density up, or if the density goes down, the commercial space gets bigger. So I guess that's the question then, right? Do we want more commercial space and whatever traffic and whatever that would drive, because that would open up more residents and more residential. I'm a residential home builder, not a commercial builder, so I'm pushing residential. Plus, the county and everyone's good in the higher density. If you can't be for land preservation if you're not for high density, right? And these infill places, you're trying to get, county and different stuff feels like they're pushing us to, try to infill these and get your density up. And again, I'm amazed to get the density to this and leave this much open space, walking trails. You got a 56-acre piece with how much open space?
Approximately 20 acres.
Which is, and
But that's because that's not, you can't build on those acres.
No, you absolutely could.
You're saying that that's not a good thing, that's not impressive that we have 20 acres of open space?
Oh, I think it's very impressive, and I think it's very good, and I think it's absolutely positively necessary. However, if it was buildable, or really buildable, you'd be putting houses on it.
I can let you answer that one.
Yeah.
Because you can't get more than 7 per acre. If you let me go 10, I would say you're right.
So,
Right?
right.
So I would say you're right. If you would say, but right now you're telling me 7, but if you tell me, hey, if she's 8, if I give you 10, I'd say, yeah, you're right. But when we're able to do, when we're able to work on density restrictions, we are fighting for open space because it makes a great neighborhood. Like, walking trails are a great neighborhood. Open spaces are a great neighborhood. Parks, sitting areas are all make great neighborhoods. That's why your density restrictions with high density allows you to have open spaces, and that is what we're pushing for. And it works. But you're right. If you told us, hey, Jason, you can take that to 10 acre and go ahead and infill that, we'd be back with a new plan.
I think what we might be suggesting here is that if our comprehensive plan suggests 4 with the option of 6, that we don't want to see 7. That's all I'm saying. Moving on.
Oh, I've got a comment.
Oh, good.
From
Yes, I guess it's a comment
from the
besides
first
me.
one of these that we received to this one, over on the other side of Millersville Road.
Oh, yes.
Okay, on this section right here, we had 4 houses here, and we had none of these, but all of a sudden, from these 4 houses, they went to 8. So there were a lot of changes here that we're not particularly comfortable with, because what we're feeling is, that our density is going up, and it's gonna get real crowded over here.
Yeah, I mean, those townhomes were always on the plan. I can't speak to the number of single family.
Yeah, we're looking at single families. There were 4 there on the original one. Now there's magically appear 8.
And I have the original one right here, and it shows 4.
And now we have 8. And of course, in the original one, there were not any of the little townhomes, but all of a sudden we see these creeping in, and we're a little bit happy.
Yeah, because on the one we saw, like Linda said, it was 4, now it's 8. And then there was the T6, that was the light purple, which is front-load garages, 17 units. So the way that read, I would have assumed they were garages, not houses.
Is that the plan that was submitted to the council?
Sure.
Yes.
So this is dated December 2020.
Do you need to come down here?
On this side, we were showing 18 townhomes and 4 single family homes.
Right,
Correct.
that's the one I'm looking for.
So we removed the townhome and shifted 3 single family homes. So we actually have less on that side.
So you ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here,
Right, so 4, so we added 1.
okay?
We,
And then you added
these
3
down
more
here,
in there.
3 more down here.
right, but there's only 12 townhomes there. There were 18 on this one. So we actually are 2 dwelling units less on that side than what we're.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for clarifying that. I think one of our concerns too deals with the density bonuses, which allows you to feel that you can put 7 units per acre. And I think that a lot of people would strongly feel that 6 is more than enough. But that's something to be discussed, and we need to continue a discussion on a number of these things.
Can I talk about the alleyways?
Yes, go right ahead.
So there are some of the homes that are off alleys where they don't have, there's no street.
Are the alleys paved?
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the alleys. Are they gonna be wide enough for, if there's emergency vehicles and stuff like that to get through?
Yeah, so we would look at either a 14 to 16 foot wide alley. We would have to do turning templates to show that the emergency vehicles, the trash trucks, moving vans would have to navigate through that area.
It was suggested, clarification, in the wording, it was suggested that an HOA be developed. Are we talking about an HOA for the entire plan, or are we talking about it only for a set of houses?
No, there would be, I mean, we'd have to work through that. There would be likely an umbrella HOA that would be some oversight to the entire development. The commercial and the apartment piece, I mean, there would have to be, maybe some separation of the HOA for those uses,
Okay.
but there would still be an entity that would oversee the maintenance and the upkeep of
Yeah,
those
that
areas.
becomes the concern, is the maintenance, especially like shoveling snow and so forth.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there would be HOA documents that would address snow removal, lawn keep, planting of dead, replacement of dead trees and landscaping throughout the community.
okay.
And, a question, and I know this has come up before, were sidewalks. And I know, I believe the explanation was that there's gonna be walkways, blacktop walkways, and that you felt that that was gonna be good enough. But I think safety-wise, I think that we were discussing about sidewalks.
Right, so on the interior of the development, any side of the street where there are residential uses, there would be concrete sidewalks.
I'm talking along the main roads. So
741
999,
specifically.
741.
741,
Right, we're only proposing macadam along the existing street frontages where there's already macadam walkways on adjacent properties in lieu of sidewalk.
Yeah,
Well, I have a question about that then, with sidewalks. On Manor Avenue, 999, the sidewalks go up to 741. They kind of go nowhere. But now, if we put this whole development in here, if sidewalk came down 741, now our residents would actually have a way to access this lovely acreage over here and walking
and
area.
the commercial area.
And the commercial area, because not
With
everybody's going to want to.
strollers and dogs and whatever,
Yes.
children.
And we would have, in lieu of a concrete sidewalk, we would do the same width of a macadam walkway in the same area.
A cabin being what?
Asphalt.
Asphalt,
Okay, blacktop type stuff.
yeah. And would you do that on, see, on the side towards, be the west side, it doesn't show even any asphalt trail. Do you see the side I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's just an error in our emission. We absolutely would add it there.
Oh, okay.
I guess the thing is there's a whole lot of difference between a blacktop and a sidewalk. We're coming from a town that has a look and it has a sidewalk. You cross that intersection and we don't want blacktop. We want a sidewalk.
So, real quick, I'm feeling a little ambushed because at the last meeting, I thought I remember coming in here talking about it. The safety of the walking trail being 15 or 20 feet off the road, right? So you don't have to worry about traffic or the stroller, your kid, you're holding their hand, they stumble. Like, in other words, the walking trail is set back off, which then you get some greenery in between there, still a walking trail. You don't have it out against the road. You don't have to worry about shoveling your driveway, then the snowplow comes and you're back out there again cleaning it off because again, you're off.
Yeah,
the
I
road.
understand that, but
so-
visually, it's like Millersville ends here. Now we got the round church, and now we have the asphalt. The whole point here is to make it a part of Millersville. So a part of Millersville, upscale, Millersville is a little bit upscale, sidewalks. We're just telling you that it's an issue for us. We
Right.
would like sidewalks.
But the Oak Knoll development to the south does not have sidewalk. It has an asphalt trail, like what we're proposing.
Yes, that's true. But we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with the continuation here from the corner. We're just telling you where our sticking points are. Another thing, I know before, I would like to see, might not be possible, but on all of those single-family units that are coming off of Quaker Hills, I would like to see some kind of a fence, not just a little berm with a tree. I don't know what your ideas are on that, but I'm mentioning a fence, which would help with all the single families that are facing off Quaker Hills, to give the Quaker Hills people some sort of privacy instead of all of a sudden an open ground into this whole new development. I'm just making a comment. I don't know.
We'd have to look at that. I mean, like I said, we don't have the stormwater planned yet.
Okay.
We can't put fences and easements.
And to answer or address a comment that you made, sir, you're not being ambushed.
No.
When you came to council the last time and handed us that original map, you made like a 15, 20-minute presentation. That was the first time we had actually really seen that. Obviously, we did not have an opportunity to digest what was there and formulate our questions in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That's why we asked for this meeting and to have all of this stuff and the ordinances you want changed, because when we change an ordinance, you know, it's like it rarely goes back. So we have to be sure that what we're doing is going to be in the benefit of the citizens of the borough.
And that's fair. And maybe my comment was really unfair. I was surprised with the walking trail thing because I thought we actually spoke about that, but we can all change our mind for the next meeting, and that's why you get ordinances, and that's why you're allowed to have opinions, and we can talk through them. You work on something too, you kind of like, I can see it, I can feel it, you guys can see it, start to see and feel it too. And I get a little worried when we start counting units 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because we're still in the preliminaries, right? We're still trying to get this ordinance figured out. So I'm a little scared because I don't want to get, well, you guys are lying, you're stretching it, you're changing it. I don't want that either, right? This will change a little bit, but it will be on the fairway, right?
Well, it was explained. We didn't have you to explain it to us on that one section that went all of a sudden from 4 to 8. We did not realize that there was a reduction in the townhouses. That was just us not understanding because we've not had the chance to speak to you. We don't know.
And this can actually be a fun process. I mean, I want it to be, right?
Fun?
Like working with you guys and trying to say, this is what you want your township, right? I'm not here to stress you out. Like we're gonna do something here. It's gonna be great when we're done. I'm just trying to sell like what we're hoping for, and you guys are trying to sell what you guys really want for your residents, and we're gonna find a balance. This isn't like boxing gloves to me. This is like, okay, what do you guys really want? This is why we want it. Can we understand
We
each other?
really want lower density. We really want sidewalks, and we really want fencing.
And we want no apartments.
Now, if we can't do no apartments, we would like to have to see some apartments above commercial.
And then we can go back and look at that, and there's a good chance it can get kicked back to the owner.
Yeah, and there are, everybody has apartments above commercial. It is so cool to come down the steps and go to Starbucks.
So that means
I'll send you an application. Hey, in other words, if that's what we want, I'm fine, we can do it, right?
Just look at it.
But we can do that, but I'm saying, I like this, it's a softer, more residential feel, okay? If you want commercial, we wanna reduce the residents, we wanna take the density down, we will bring in more commercial, and that's okay. We just need to know what the offsets are. In other words, show us where the guidelines are.
Well, you can only do a certain percentage anyway of the commercial. You can't exceed over something. But if you're, instead of going out horizontally, you can go vertical.
Yeah, you're allowed up to 12% of the land area
Yeah,
in commercial
12%.
uses.
right.
And you
So-
can have tables and chairs and do all your
I mean,
aesthetic
and
things.
I noticed in this missive that we received, the idea of patios and outdoor seating and possible things like that in that area behind the commercial. And I think a lot of that would be a very positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, just for perspective, we're at about 4% right now for commercial.
Right, and I'm going to assume, of course, assumption is the mother of screw-ups, that the reason for your reducing the size of the homes is, of course, the garage situation, which you explained earlier, and reducing the size of the front porch from 6 feet by 9 feet, which is what is in our plans, to just 40 square feet, is simply so that you will be able to squeeze more houses in. Is that correct?
The porch isn't gonna make that much of a difference.
Then
to
why
squeeze
are
more
we
houses.
reducing it?
Because when you're looking at townhomes or single-family homes, if you're trying to do the traditional neighborhood development, you're trying to add the porches, you're trying to reduce the garage space, you're trying to get density to make the character of the development. If you have narrower lots, there's less area for the water and sewer to come in, for the electric and gas to come in. If you change it to 40 square feet and not have a specific, minimum width and length requirement, then you allow some flexibility in that porch to allow the utility connections to
Right,
the
and
home.
I don't think there's a problem with that. I just wanted an explanation. Questions? Does anyone else on council have any questions for Garmin at this time? I know that there's going to be a lot more to this before we're finished. And I think that it may be very possible that we may need to have a public forum or a special meeting for council and the public so that the public can really ask questions and find out answers now that they have seen the project and hopefully understand a little more about what's going on. So that may be something that we need to look to in the near future. So, anything else?
Just as we're going through it, like, honestly, I'm not here to fight with anybody, right? We wanna give a cool project here. And I'm just talking to, our engineer, Brandon, we can go back and actually draw up what would be allowed under the old ordinance and show you guys, like, hey, this would be maxing out what is currently allowed, and see what that feels like. I think this is a softer, more open space plan, but I'm not sitting here like, hey, it's your ordinance and I get it. Like, I'm in your town to play by your rules. I'm just trying to sell what I think works because I'm a building professional and that's what I do. But if you guys are saying, no, we don't want that, we want this, I'm thinking, okay. I just tell you what we do in other areas, we travel around the nation, we go and we tour stuff in other states and areas, and we try to bring those feels and those comfort features in here. But again, we're in your house, we're in your community, we want to be your friend, we want to be a part of you. We want these guys, friends and family, to move in here if they don't move in themselves.
And I thank you for that, because that will allow us then to move forward with you, realizing that we do have room to move back and forth on some of these things. I would love to see that too.
But we can answer more questions going through it, and we can look at that again. We try to come in the first meeting, get a feel. We try to come back, getting a feel for what we like, kind of thinking we're marrying up to you guys. Obviously, we didn't, and then we got to come back and say, okay. But the biggest change I'm hearing and seeing is just this front acreage here, and it said, what do you think, it was 4%? This is 4%. So we changed commercial from 4% to 12%. We'd have to name all the type of users, the traffic counts, what can come in there, all of that work versus what residential, the coverage and everything. So we can do that, and I think that's a fair question. And then we can also maybe throw another plan out there and say, hey, look, this is what else we're thinking, and how do we do that and still save time to respect the seller and everything else. We'll figure it out.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and that's good to hear. And I know that there's going to be a lot more questions, and a lot of them, and this is why I'd like to have a public forum type of thing, a lot of them are going to deal, of course, with traffic, which is horrendous on 741 now, and 999 isn't any better. And the impact that this will have on our schools, the police, the sewer system, and everything else. I mean, and I know we are not at a point where we can necessarily discuss a lot of that, but I think that we need to start thinking about it. So thank you very much for your presentation, and I would appreciate it if you stick around, as you said you would, till we get down to the citizens' requests or concerns, because I'm sure some of our members of the audience tonight will have questions that we didn't think of, because we're only 3 people, and there's a lot more out here that I'm sure you'll be able to think of some things. So, that being said, I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the discussion of Pavilion A naming and/or borough naming policy. It had been suggested that we name a pavilion down in the park after John Herr, who has done so much for the borough. But the Parks Committee did not recommend that we do that. Now, we have somebody here from Parks, I believe.
So Lauren, who's the president of, or I'm sorry, the chair of the Parks Commission, was unable to be here, but she did send me over her statement that she was going to make this evening, and I just passed it out to everyone. Do you want me to read it for the record?
Yes, please.
Okay. Unless, Karen, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you want to read it? You want me to read it?
It doesn't, go for it.
Okay. Karen is the vice chair of Parks. As she said, good evening, everyone. I want to take a moment to explain why we decided not to move forward with naming something in the park after John Herr. There are a few important reasons behind this decision. First, while John Herr has certainly made his mark on our community, we didn't find any significant contributions he made specifically to the park, either financially or through his time and effort. We have only ever honored one person who made a substantial contribution directly to the park. Secondly, John Herr is already well recognized in our community, particularly through John Herr's Village Market, which many of us are familiar with and appreciate. He has a lasting legacy there. If we want to honor him somewhere in our community, may we recommend asking the Lions Club to consider adding a plaque or naming the swimming pool after him, giving his integral role in the organization and project. Lastly, we need to be careful about setting a precedent. In the past, we've turned down similar requests because we wanted to maintain a clear standard. If we name something in the park after someone without a substantial contribution, it could lead to many more requests that we'd have to consider under similar circumstances. Given these reasons, we've recommended establishing a formal policy that will require a significant monetary contribution for such naming honors in the future. This way we can ensure that our park recognizes those who have really helped support and develop it. Thank you for understanding and support. That was from Lauren, representing the Parks Commission.
Any questions? I know that folks are expecting council to make a decision on this particular item, and I appreciate her writing this letter. I think it's very well done, and I understand all of the reasons behind this, but I think what we will do tonight is table this till next time, and we need to have a chance to discuss this.
People to the next Public Works Committee meeting.
Next Public Works meeting.
And my feeling, since I'm on the committee, is that I don't think a person needs to be recognized that needs to pay for it. That makes me a little upset, that they have to pay. If they give $200, are they really recognized? But let's say they give 1,000, then maybe they really need to be recognized. I'm telling you, I'm not very happy with that. Just saying.
There is, if I may, and I'm not on the committee.
Please go ahead, Mary Ann.
There is, for the benefit of the audience, in the letter, they have outlined their reasons why they are not going to recommend naming something after an individual, specifically John Herr. And there's a statement, given these reasons, we recommended establishing a formal policy that will require a significant monetary contribution for each naming honors in the future. And I believe that's what Linda is referring to.
Yes, that's what I'm referring to.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, John Herr is Millersville, in my opinion. I
is Millersville. John Herr is Millersville.
So
So if I donated $1 million, the park would be named Weaver.
Oh my gosh, you would get a pavilion. You would get a band every year.
I'm sorry, Phyllis, you did want to table that, so.
Yeah, and that's okay, because I think we need to discuss this further if there's going to be some,
Well, I thought it needed some clarification for the audience benefit.
Yes.
and I thank you for that. And I do believe that I think the council will need to discuss this whole naming business and what requirements might be necessary should we decide to do this. And so we will not make any decision now. We will move that to a future time. And this then concludes the Public Works meeting for this evening.
Very good. Thank you very much, Phyllis, other Public Works folks. We'll move on to the mayor's report. Mr. Achel, do we have anything?
Looking forward, but I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who showed up this evening. I wish I had this kind of crowd. We all wish we had this kind of crowd every meeting, because there may only be one concern that you're looking at, but the members of council are looking not only at your concerns, but we're looking at concerns everywhere in the borough. And we hope to see many more faces at our future meetings, so.
Here, here. Very well. We'll move on then to the manager's report. We might have already touched on one of these points, but.
Yes, we were able to already knock off the first item, which we covered during the Finance Advisory Committee, so we can just move on from there. The next item is a request for the approval of the hiring of Nicole Bushong for the position of sewer operator apprentice. This was with a start date of July 22nd and a starting salary of $49,900. Nicole was a fantastic candidate for filling this position that was vacated with a retirement that we had back in February. We're very, very excited to be able to offer her the position. So we're looking for approval to fill this position, and then our sewer department will be full.
In that case, I am looking for a motion to approve the hiring of Nicole Bushong for the
So
position.
moved.
Okey-doke.
Second.
Second, any discussion required at all? Anybody? Very well. In that case, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. All opposed? And any abstentions? Very well, then the motion carries.
That's all I have this evening.
Well, next item on our agenda is the president's report. I will be holding that until after our next item. We will be moving instead on to our second citizens' requests and concerns. So from the script, at this time, council will hear any comments, requests, or concerns from members of the public related to the agenda or other matters. Once again, you will have 5 minutes to speak. Please either come to the microphone to speak or ask the microphone be brought to you. Please also give your name and a general address for the record. As a reminder, as I did with Mr. Weaver, once you've made your comment, you will be thanked and asked to sit, though there may be questions by council for any kind of clarification. Once the public comment period is closed, I will do my best to answer any pertinent questions or address concerns that come up.
Thank you. I'm Phil Gerber, and a longtime resident of Millersville. And I am wondering what happened to the Planning Commission? Does 3 people on council usurp the Planning Commission's duties? I'm really baffled by this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would, your name and address for the record.
I'm Don Schaefer. I live on Brookview Drive in Millersville. To my dismay, it looks like this property is eventually going to be developed. I'm not a builder, but I am an accountant, and I've been in construction for 15 years. And I would ask the members of the council who were asking questions and pushing back, I'll thank you for that, and my request is that you would continue to do that, because I think that with a lower density, there's still plenty of profit for garment builders.
Susan Guggenheim, and I live on Manor Avenue. I'll make this really quick. I'm surprised to learn that no feasibility studies have been conducted on this particular regard. Rebecca did respond to my email and say that there will be a traffic study, hopefully when school's in session, and also a sewage study. But I'm concerned about water. Where is that coming from? The police chief tonight just talked about how they need police officers. I'm estimating on the current plan 1,100 new residents of Millersville, roughly 400 children potentially, and police, fire, and school. So after this is built and rented out or sold or whatever the tenants do, where are those children going to school and who is going to foot the bill?
Thank you.
Good evening, Jim Murphy. I live in Millersville. You know, the nice thing about Millersville is Millersville. We don't have any strip clubs. We don't have any big industry. There's no giant computer centers. There's no trucking centers. Millersville, I moved here because it's Millersville. This plan is not Millersville. I have a couple questions, and I loved the couple comments you guys made, but I have a lot of questions, and I want to know, basically, how is this going to benefit Millersville? I don't see, and let's break it down even more. Let's break it down to me. I want to know how I'm going to benefit from this. I live in a great community that used to have some retail, but the retail is kind of vanished. Where did Wiley's Pharmacy go? I see a strip over here that has 3-4 vacant stores in it. They can't fill them now. Do you guys, and this is not personal, but do you guys have plans to rent those retail spaces out now?
Well, that's some of the challenge of commercial underneath, and that.
What a surprise.
It's a valid point.
Do we really need more retail? I got a great grocery store here. I love the grocery store. Used to love to go to Wiley's. My idea is, why do we consider progress turning country into town? I love living in Millersville. I moved here specifically. Please, in the decisions that you guys make, keep that in mind. And I think there are probably at least 10 or 11 people in the audience tonight that feel similarly. I'm thinking to myself, and again, this is not personal. Builders like Garmin and others have successfully built out Manheim Township. And now have we set our sights on Manor Township, beginning with Millersville. Manheim Township is the poster boy for bad land use. If you ever go to Manheim Township, there's no open land left. They're out. Is that going to happen to Manor Township? Is that going to happen to Millersville? Please, you guys keep asking the questions that you're doing. The density thing was a brilliant question. I mean, this is not Millersville. Thank you for listening.
And just a quick reminder as we wait for our next speaker, do please try to address your comments to council.
Yes, my name is Tom Highland, 31 Chamberlain Lane, Millersville. I just have a question. The last time they were doing construction all along the 999, they were planning on building that senior, they were given a tax abatement for 10 years. Is anything like that going to be applied to this?
They didn't get it. That was referred to it, that's called alerta. And to the best of my knowledge, there has not been an application for one for this project. Has there?
Thanks, sir.
Hi, my name is Erin McFalls, and I live on Fresh Meadow Drive in the single-family homes up against where this development will be. I just wanted to follow up with your comments about some barrier between the single-family homes that are currently existing in the neighborhood and these single-family homes that will be going in behind us. I do understand stormwater management and things like that because that's part of my comment as well. Those homes that are there on Fresh Meadow Drive are below the neighborhood that is proposed. So houses there will be looking into our second story windows, which is our bedrooms and our bathrooms. So compromises privacy a little bit. Also, there has historically in that part of the neighborhood, stormwater management has been a problem and our backyards have been regraded several times. So I just wanted to make sure that that is on somebody's plan, stormwater management and some kind of barrier between existing single-family homes and what's going in there. Also, do we have a timeline? I know we haven't even approved this yet, but is there a timeline for development? Like when do we expect this to start? Would be helpful information.
Thank you.
My name is Richard Monjo. I live at 12 Green Hills Drive. So I have some serious concerns about this construction. Lived there for over 20 years. I can look right out my back door and look into the field and watch the wildlife. There's a wetlands on this property that I'm concerned about. You can do your best to try to preserve it, but over time, it's going to ruin it. Our utilities, electric, cable, all come in the back of our house. I don't see anything on here that says there's going to be access for utility companies. There has to be. They can't drive over people's property. And right now, the poles are right on the property line. Water. There's been times in the last 2 years that we've had very low water pressure. Now, there were a lot of issues with water pipes breaking in the neighborhood. Most of those have been replaced. But where are you getting the water? Because there's been times where our water pressure was so low, it can't go any lower. So that's another concern of mine. And I'm sure I'll come up with more. Thank you.
Please share them once you do, and thank you.
I'm Karen DeLong. I live on North George Street, and I just have a question, should all this go through it, is I didn't know if it was possible or something that could be considered once all of the apartments and the townhomes go in, as far as who owns them, if there was a way to put in an ordinance to say that if you own it, you need to live in it to cut back on how many people are renting and to cut back on how many college students are renting them. So not so much of a comment, just if that could be something that would make me feel a little bit better about the number of people that you're trying to put in that space. Because I do recognize that Millersville needs more income. I get that. But I hate how many people we're looking at putting in there. And I hate the idea of having so many of them be bought up by one person and run it out with the turnover.
My name is Dave Haverstick. I live at 136 Oak Knoll Circle. I appreciated the comment about Oak Knoll. A lot of times people think, well, Oak Knoll is just another rental community. It's not a rental community. People own those units. I own my unit. And I just want to encourage the folks who are planning this to consider Oak Knoll and the impact of this, because this is, we moved here because it was a nice, small, quiet kind of subdivision, and we knew eventually there'd be some development, but I want to make sure that Oak Knoll's situation is considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Elaine Pease, and I live on Fresh Meadow Drive, and I've lived there for 50 years. And it's, Quaker Hills is a nice, quiet community, and I really object to having it be a shortcut through Quaker Hills to get to 999. I think it's going to really impact our quality of life. We don't have sidewalks. People walk in the street. The kids are walking in the street coming home from school. And we're going to be a runway. And I really object to that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Jester. I live on 206 North George. With the numbers that the woman gave as far as how many students are in a school, 450 students, 450 people, that's another school. So I would also like to just second that as far as how is the enrollment at our schools? Is there room to support that? Who's going to pay for the teachers? Talk to the superintendent. I'd also like to just bring up crime. With apartments brings crime. And I think many of us are here because we're on Nextdoor. Just a couple weeks ago, I had a police officer from the borough come to my house because I have cameras. Somebody had come down George Street and they're asking if I had footage to catch the guy. So consider that as well. I'm completely opposed to apartments. Please bring single family homes and all that, but you already know what's happening across the way with all those other apartments happening. So just please consider what we're bringing into our nice community with crime as well, and how many police officers we have to support it. So, and fire. Thank you.
Good evening, Borough Council. My name is Dave Rhodes. I live on Wallbank Road. I moved back into Millersville after my dad passed away. Took over as the residence. I moved back there about a year ago. Ever since I've moved in, the traffic on 741 has grown immensely. Every day I come home, go out in the backyard, and you can see it lined up. At night, sometimes I'm unable to sleep because the traffic, the noise. So I'm just wondering if you take that into concern, the noise quality, when taking this property into concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Eckert, Circle Road. I know you guys are, progress is progress, and that's tough for some people in here. There are elegant ways to deal with this, though. One thing I saw recently was, especially addressing the concerns with the schools and stuff, a lot of boroughs, cities, and things like that are instituting 10%, only a 10% overflow in schools for builders. So they have to consider the impact it's going to have on these people that are sitting in here, including the public works and things like that. If council would be willing to consider something like that, it might be a good idea. Thank you.
Further comments? Very well. First and foremost, let me thank those of you who came to speak and to attend. I appreciate the feedback. Obviously, the concerns of the citizens are foremost in the minds of myself and the other members of council. My vice president hit the big four refrain for me: emergency services, sewer and water, schools, and traffic. Obviously, there are other concerns, but these are the four primary that I think we're going to be considering most seriously as we move forward throughout this process. Obviously, there are other things that are important here, like the character of the neighborhood. Getting that feedback from you all is paramount in my understanding of how important that is to the citizenry. So I want to thank you and tell you that I appreciate all of that feedback. As far as, I didn't hear a great deal of specific questions that we'll be able to answer, not at this point. We are still early days in this process. Just know that the items that were brought up are items that are of paramount concern for those of us who sit on this council. I'm just going to look over my notes quickly to make sure that I didn't miss a question.
We all live in Millersville also.
Oh,
If you're on
yes.
council, you have to live in Millersville.
You get kicked off if you don't.
That's right.
All right, yeah, looks like a lot of the questions that we did get are things for us to consider as we move forward, and believe me that we will. We do take these comments very seriously. I think you heard from the other members of council, especially on our Public Works Committee, that we do have the citizens' best interest at heart. So with that, I see no reason for executive session. May I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved. Second.
And seconded by Vice President Giberson. All those in favor of adjournment, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? We stand adjourned.